Jordan, this past weekend, Clemson took on Furman and handled them much like you would expect a Power 5 team to play against a lower level FCS team in Furman. They dominated the game. They got a ton of players in, and the game was never really in doubt. However, Clemson did not get out of the game against Furman unscathed. It was unfortunate that we had really two big injuries in this game. Olsen Pat Henry, tight end for the Clemson Tigers, kind of banged up his knee. It seems like it's a patella tendon type of situation for him. Luckily, it's not an ACC or an ACL, excuse me, or anything more severe. It's more of a patella tendon type of deal. And then Jaheim Lawson, one of our bright spots on the defense this year, and a defense that has struggled at a lot of points and times in this season. Jaheim Lawson has been a constant. He's probably been one of the best defensive linemen, maybe right behind Will Helt, that we've had all season. He's a consistent pass rusher. He's a disruptive force along the defensive line, and he's out there on a package that he probably should not have been. But he goes out there, he gets injured. It seems like it's just a sprain, so it seems like it's not going to be anything long-term. It's not going to be anything surgical. But these two guys are pivotal pieces for the Tigers, and they're out for the season. So, Jordan, what does this mean for Clemson heading into this South Carolina game, this very pivotal state championship game, when you're missing, two of your biggest pieces on both sides of the ball?
Yeah, I mean it means a lot, and it's at a pretty ill-advised time. I mean, listen, I think this South Carolina defense you're about to play is not the team you played last year. I think they've taken a considerable step back, but this is still a team with some really, really capable NFL players, and they've played well at points of this season. With Olsen Pat Henry being out, I think that means a ton for in terms of blocking. You're going to need help. You blocking guys like Dylan Stewart and Brian Thomas Jr. So I mean, listen, this is not an easy challenge for this Clemson offense. And then obviously, losing Jaheim Lawson on the defensive side of the football. I mean, he's been arguably your best pass rusher, at least your most consistent. He's flashed essentially every game, and he's really just gotten better and better with each game. And you hate it for him because this was kind of his breakout. We've been kind of waiting. You knew the ability was there. He didn't come along as fast as his older brother did for obvious reasons. So like it was really exciting when things just really started to click for him, earlier in the year. But now you take one of your pass rush specialists off the field. That's going to be. I feel like his presence is really going to be missed on third down, especially. And so now you got to find a way to make up that production elsewhere. Definitely. I mean, obviously you'll see a lot of TJ Parker and Will Helt on Saturday. Cade Denhoff as well, but Darian Mayo is a guy that's listed now in that two deep. He's that next up to kind of take that place as that fourth defensive end in the rotation. And is he ready for that role? I guess we'll see. I don't know how much you'll actually see him. Will they play? Will they kind of run TJ and Will Helt into the ground, or will they, actually continue to rotate and get guys in? That's one thing that'll be really interesting. And when you're facing a guy like the Lenore Sellers, who, while he has not been as lethal on the ground this year for a multitude of reasons, this would be the perfect time for them to really start scheming some things with him with the ball in his hands. And I think they did that quite a good bit on Saturday against Coastal Carolina. They got him moving a lot more. So being able to contain, which you weren't able to do last season, is going to be paramount. And, not having one of your more athletic pass rushers on the field is going to be I think his presence is going to be missed on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, Jaheim Lawson is a big one, particularly for this Saturday. When you think about a guy in Lenore Sellers coming into this game, it's pivotal that you have your best pass rushers on the field, and you won't have one of your best pass rushers on the field. You won't have one of your best athletes along the defensive line on the field. And he's a guy that can limit Norris Sellers. He's a guy that can be disruptive in that South Carolina backfield. South Carolina's a team that's given up quite a few sacks this season, and he's a guy that could exploit that weakness. However, he won't be on the field this season, this game. And you know, as much as Lenore Sellers has not been a threat with his legs as much as he was last season, he has taken a huge step back, and I think part of that was the play calling. Obviously, they fire their offensive coordinator, they fire their offensive line coach, and it's looking like a bit of a different offense, particularly in that last game, and even in the first half of the Texas A&M game that they completely blew. But this could be a game where Lenore Sellers' legs hurt you, right? And Jaheim Lawson would be that guy that you would look to kind of limit some of that, along with a lot of other players. But he's a pivotal piece, and he's not going to be there. And then along the offensive side of the ball, Olsen Pat Henry. If anybody's watched Clemson football for an extended period of time this year, this guy catches everything in his area code. I mean, this guy is a consistent catcher of the football. Whenever Cade Klubnik puts it anywhere in his vicinity, he's most likely going to come up with the football. It's very unfortunate that he takes this injury. These are two big pieces that have been taken off of the Clemson football team, both on the offense and the defensive side of the ball. It's not a good thing, and you're playing a team this week that is a very losable game, and not having two of your most pivotal pieces on each side of the ball is not a good thing. So Clemson's going to have their work cut out for them, and this is obviously not a good thing late in the season. But luckily for both of them, it sounds like they will be a full go for spring and moving forward into the 2026 season. So that is the good news that you can take away from it.
Yeah, absolutely. And in other injury news, I guess we'll kind of address this as well. Star of the Furman game, really star of the last couple of possessions of the Furman game, Chris Denson. He has found himself on the injury report now. It was reported that he got stepped on in practice playing a running scout team, probably to simulate Lenore Sellers in his legs, and
yes,
he got stepped on, and now he's going to be out for a little bit. So, I mean, I don't know how much they had planned to play him at all, if at all, on Saturday. But that's unfortunate not to have that in your back pocket now, in case you did have something like a package for him. Just kind of throw a different look or a different wrinkle. So yeah, that's unfortunate. It feels like we barely knew him, and now he's gone again.
It's kind of one of those things where it's like, of course that happens in the 2025 version of Clemson football, the hold my beer version of Clemson football. Of course, that's what happens, right? Chris Denson comes out against Furman and has, I think, 106 yards rushing, 4 on passing for 22 yards. He rushes for a touchdown. He throws for another touchdown. And his legs are certainly a weapon. And going into the South Carolina game, you would have loved to see a package or two put in for Chris Denson and be a little creative on offense, right? Again, we don't know the extent of the injury. Dabo Swinney reported today that, the injury happened. He was stepped on, I think, yesterday in practice. He could not finish. And I don't believe he's practiced since then. So what is the likelihood that he would be healthy enough to play in the South Carolina game? I don't really know because we don't know the extent of the injury. So it's just kind of one of those things that's it's just very disappointing, right? You would have loved to see a package or two from that guy because it's clear that he is dynamic with his legs. And you could have done some creative stuff on offense to keep that South Carolina defense off balance and keep them guessing, even with a package with him and Cade in the game together, right? So, again, Dabo Swinney was asked by a reporter in his press conference of if that would happen. That's what sparked Dabo Sweeney to tell the media about the injury. And then he was like, I wouldn't answer that anyway. There's no way I would tell you if I was going to put in a package.
Right.
Because obviously you would not do that as a head football coach. So maybe it's not as bad as maybe it appeared in the press conference, and maybe Chris Denson's ready to go and there is a package for him in South Carolina. I guess all of us Clemson fans will just have to wait and see.
Yep, wait and see we shall. But yeah, tough injury news for Clemson. I guess on the more positive side, Dabo also mentioned that Stefan Green was available for Furman. They just decided to hold him. So, potentially that could mean that you see him back on Saturday, which would be a massive boost for this defensive front. Stefan Green is basically a starter for you, and definitely one of the guys I'm circling, and we'll talk about this as we get towards the offseason, guys that you feel you really need to retain for next season. I think he's definitely on the short list there, if you can help it. So it could be massive to get him back, because I think this defensive line is better when he's on the field, just flat out. So yeah. We'll definitely see on that front as well.
No doubt about it. Yeah, Clemson is banged up offensively, defensively. From the injury standpoint, Clemson is not in a good way. We've lost tons of offensive linemen this season. So it's going to be interesting to see, kind of what happens on Saturday versus the South Carolina Gamecocks in Columbia, South Carolina. Noon kickoff for that game, SEC Network. I hate that it's a noon kickoff, but again, it is what it is. Clemson, South Carolina always has a draw. It's going to be an amazing atmosphere, and I hope our Clemson Tigers can get it done. Jordan, this past Saturday, Clemson played FCS opponent Furman Paladins in Death Valley. It was senior day. It was military appreciation day. It was the all-purple uniform day, which is one of my favorite combinations of Clemson uniforms. It's always a great day. Clemson does a great job with Military Appreciation Day. They do a great job with the Senior Day. They honor Joey Batson in the game. He ran down the hill. He was also honored at a timeout at one point in time in the game as kind of a farewell for his 29 seasons as strength and conditioning coach at Clemson. And it went about as well as it could have gone early on in the game. Clemson was scoring early and often. The defense was getting quite a few 3-and-outs. And, it was one of those things where it got a little interesting at one point, and Clemson had to put the first team defense back in to get a stop. And ultimately, Clemson wins a very easy game. A lot of people get in, played 4 quarterbacks, played a ton of players, got a lot of guys on the field that you needed to evaluate going forward into the 2026 season. So your thoughts as you got a chance to go back and watch this Furman game and really get a couple days to kind of digest what you saw?
Yeah, I mean, this game, just kind of there wasn't too much to write home about in terms of the the takeaways. Of course, I mean, offensively, you did what you were supposed to do for at least the first team did, and obviously the bogging down in the second half, or specifically the third quarter, was kind of frustrating, and defensively, you had a couple breakdowns, but all in all, I think it was a fine performance. Nothing too much noteworthy to talk about. Obviously, the Chris Denson show at the end was probably the most fun part of the game, and I think it was a good tune-up, good opportunity to see a lot of guys get some action. You got to see some of the guys this team is going to be building with in the future. Logan Brookings and the other young offensive linemen.
Hey, when Logan Brookings scored his touchdown, that dude was about to come out of his skin. He was so excited.
Yeah,
he was ready to run through all the brick walls.
Yeah, he was. And so, that was good to see. Got to see some of the, obviously you got to see a lot of the walk-ons play. Um, but yeah, overall, pretty good win. Some negatives there for sure, but didn't have too much extra to take away from it when I went back and rewatched it. I think you got to see some guys flash more, guys we haven't seen as much of during the season. Um, and yeah, it was a good opportunity to get a lot of guys in. The young defensive linemen, Heaven Brown Schuler, Champ Thompson. Got to see Caden Story. We haven't said his name much this year.
Hey, he played really well.
He played well.
He played really well.
Of course, Vic Burley, who I think he's coming along more and more, which is good to see, because I definitely think he's a guy if you keep him, he's a guy that you'll definitely have to rely more on next year on that interior. Who else? I mean, you got to see a lot of the seniors. Hell, even Zaire Patterson got in the game. So it was overall that's the type of game you want. So overall, pretty pleased. Just frustrated with some of the lack of execution in that third quarter.
Yeah, I mean, look, the lack of execution in the third quarter was certainly frustrating, and it was a portion of the defense that hadn't played a lot of snaps this season, and they were a portion of the defense that needed to get out there. They got exposed quite a bit, and they're going to get coached very hard off of that performance that they put onto the field. When you have to put your first team defense back in, that means that those reserves, all those guys that have been preparing all season, all those guys that, some of them think they should be on the field, got exposed and they got told, you're not good enough for this, right? And I think that's important. I think that's a part of development when it comes to college football. And I think that's something that Dabo Sweeney and Tom Allen and the defensive staff are going to use to coach those guys up. And then, as far as the quarterback goes, we played 4 quarterbacks in the game against Furman. Chris Vizina did not look great. Trent Pierman did not look great. And, your fourth quarterback in looked really good, right? Especially with his legs. He went over 100 yards rushing, and he was 4 for 4 passing. However, not very many of those passes went past the line of scrimmage. And the one pass that went past the line of scrimmage to Ian Shefflin was not a great pass. It looked wobbly. It looked kind of weird. And Chris Denson is kind of one of those quarterbacks I think that is still really developing, especially with his throwing motion, especially with his delivery. I think he's a guy that still needs a lot of work. And from what I saw on Saturday, just a Clemson fan looking outside, looking in, there is nothing on Saturday that told me that you do not need to go to the portal and go get a quarterback to compete for that starting job. I think you absolutely have to go to the portal and bring in a quarterback that is either going to be the starter or compete for the starting position. That's just where I'm at. And I love Chris Vizina, and it's awesome that he stayed, and he's a loyal guy. But guess what? At the end of the day, the name of the game is to win football games, and I'm just not sold on any current player or any current quarterback on Clemson's roster going forward into 2026. That's just where I'm at right now. So, when it comes to the Furman game, it's great to see all these guys get playing time. It's great to see them, get some play on the field so that they can have tape to develop them and to coach them. But there's a lot of holes on this roster that need to be filled. I think Corian Gibson has done a great job of kind of filling that nickel position and developing as a cornerback there. You're going to lose Avion Terrell this season. Ashton Hampton has his challenges this season. I think that's probably a position group where you're probably going to have to go to the portal as well. Offensive line is going to be one of those position groups, potentially running back. There's going to be a lot of holes on this Clemson roster that are probably going to have to be filled through the portal. And I think that was evident by the depth issue that was highlighted during that Clemson Furman game as we tried to get to the 2-3 deep when the game was out of hand.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, definitely, like when you saw the reserves come in, obviously nothing told you that there was like that you should feel good, and comfortable with where you're at, heading into 2026. So, yeah, but I think that's, we've already beaten the drum about that. I don't think we needed to see Furman to realize that.
No,
that's
definitely
just where this program is.
Absolutely. Cade Klubnik has been the starting quarterback at Clemson for 3 seasons now. He took over for DJ Uiagalelei in a ACC championship game in which he won, and it was an amazing night. It was a great night, and all of that stuff. But the question still remains. He was a 5-star recruit coming out of high school, Westlake in Texas, won multiple state championships. He was a 6A starting quarterback in the state of Texas, probably the biggest state when it comes to high school football. And he chose Clemson. He wanted to come to Clemson. Clemson was his dream school when he was a child. And he comes here, and to be completely honest, Jordan, Cade Klubnik's career has not gone according to plan. It has not gone according to what Clemson fans probably thought it was going to be, what we thought it was probably going to be, what Cade Klubnik thought it was probably going to be. However, we are faced with the question. Cade Klubnik has just 2 games left in a Clemson Tiger uniform with that paw on his helmet. He's got the state championship against South Carolina, and he's got whatever bowl game Clemson ends up going to. What is Cade Klubnik's legacy going to be when he leaves Clemson, both now and in the future? Because as we all know as fans, sometimes our opinions of certain players change over time. So, Jordan, what is Cade Klubnik's legacy? Because his stats are not too bad. When you look at them, they're not as bad as some fans think they are.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's a tough question to ask, and it's a very, very nuanced kind of conversation. It probably, I mean, you ask like any random Clemson fan on Twitter, they'll probably give you one extreme or the other. Honestly, it feels like you either, the fans I see, they either love him and or hate him. But I think obviously the answer is probably a lot of in between. When you talk about this, when you talk about his time at Clemson and his impact on the program, I mean, he came at a time where there was considerable, unrest and and kind of nervousness within the program, and you were just coming off of that by recent Clemson standards, rough 2021 season. DJ Uiagalelei was the starter, and obviously there was plenty of people that were ready for him to move on. He was the shiny new thing. After the disappointment that DJU was following Trevor Lawrence, there's this hope that Cade Klubnik was going to come in and just kind of just correct things, and the DJU experience was a one-off, and that Cade was going to bring this program back to kind of back to the winning that most fans expected, and the DJU legacy, the DJU experience was just going to be viewed as some just bump in the road, and obviously it didn't play out like that. I think we certainly got really, really big-eyed after Cade's performance coming in the ACC championship game back in 2022. And I think there was a level of expectation set from that point that he just flat out has not been able to live up to. 2023, obviously was a season full of struggles and for him and for the team. And I think that certainly was just kind of it was kind of a shock for a lot of people. It just, because I was like, how has this team gotten worse in a lot of ways than they were with DJ Uiagalelei. And there are a lot of reasons for that, most of which Cade had no control over. But I do think that just over the course of his career and the improvements he made, and obviously taking Clemson to the college football playoff last year, I think there are a lot of reasons to look at Cade's career as as a pretty good one. Not great, not elite, not one that the history books are going to they're going to talk about forever and ever. But I think by all objective measures was a pretty solid career. He's 25-13 or 25-14 as a starter.
25-14. Yep.
Yeah, I mean he's 4 passing yards away from passing Charlie Whitehurst on the all-time passing yards list. He's already hit the 10,000 total yards club, and he's 338 I want to say yards away from reaching 10,000 yards. I think he can potentially hit that in his 2 remaining games. A lot of reasons to look at Cade Klubnik's career, especially from a statistics standpoint, and think, yeah, I mean, he was a pretty good quarterback. But then when you look at the context of which those stats came, and the game, the performances at different points in his career where he himself did not play well, and the team fell short, and obviously losing. He's in 2 of his 3 seasons as starter, Clemson lost 4 or more games. That's going to be tough to reconcile, man.
It's tough. Cade Klubnik's legacy at Clemson is, I think, one of the hardest things to gauge right now, specifically because you're coming off of one of the most successful eras in college football and in Clemson football. Dabo Swinney's run of 2 national championships, 7 playoff appearances, countless ACC championships, and all of that is kind of what taints Clemson's legacy, or not Clemson's, but Cade's legacy when it comes to Clemson football. And you thought this 5-star from Texas was going to come in here and he was going to light up the scoreboard and possibly even win a Heisman. That's not going to happen. And, it's kind of been one of those things where he's not had a bad career at Clemson, but he's not exactly had the career that Clemson fans thought he would have, right? He has 9,600 yards right now as it stands as a passer. He's got 800 plus yards as a rusher. He's got countless touchdowns. Last season was by far his greatest season as a Clemson Tiger, and he seemed to regress in 2025, and I think that's been one of the disappointing things. I think if he would have had a similar season to 2024 in 2025, he would be remembered as a much better Clemson quarterback in a lot of fans' minds. But unfortunately, the 2025 season has not been kind to the Clemson Tigers. It has been an abject failure. It has been a season where things did not go their way. However, he has his best completion percentage of his entire Clemson career this season. He's got, as far as rushing, he's way down. Last year he had over 400 yards rushing on the season. This year, less than 100 yards rushing, right? So, it's been one of those careers where it's just been really up and down. He's a guy that sometimes tries to do too much, and I think that's a result of he's just trying to win football games, right? He's trying to be a baller. He's trying to be a guy that does the most when it comes to winning football games. He wants to win football games. Like, there has never been a time like to go to bat for Cade Klubnik, right? And this is not me putting on my orange colored glasses or anything like that, but to tell Clemson fans, like, I've never walked away from a game where Cade Klubnik has started at quarterback where I didn't think that he wanted to put Clemson in the best position to win a football game. This guy loves Clemson. And he had an interview today where he was like, I get to wear the paw for 2 more games. He's not even thinking about sitting out for a game. And I know people are like, well, he's not going to be a high draft pick anyway, so why would he sit out for a playoff game or sit out for not a playoff game, but a bowl game? That's not the case around the country. This guy loves Clemson. This guy wants to be the Clemson quarterback. He wanted to bring Clemson a national championship. It just didn't work out, right? For whatever reason, whether it was offensive coordinator, whether it was development issues, whether it was a Cade Klubnik issue, whatever the issue was, this guy loves Clemson. He wanted to play for Clemson. He came and played for Clemson. He gave Clemson his all. And for that, I will forever be grateful. It has not gone exactly how I thought it would for Cade Klubnik here at Clemson, but what I've never wavered on was Clemson or Cade Klubnik's love for Clemson football and his want to put them in the best position to win football games. That's what I will never second guess. And it's probably going to take some time to kind of revisit it and kind of go back and look at things. Right now it's kind of raw, and this is a season where this is not probably a fair question to ask because a lot of Clemson fans are disgruntled, they're irritated, they're pissed off about what the Clemson football season has become in 2025, particularly because of the expectations coming into the season. But Cade Klubnik is a baller. He's a guy that he's a Clemson guy through and through. I'm happy that he came to Clemson. I think it would have been much worse if he did not come to Clemson. Although he has not been the best decision maker for much of his career, I'm still super thankful that he decided to bring his talents to Clemson, South Carolina, and be our quarterback. Because if not, I think it could have been much worse.
Yeah, I mean, potentially, and it's on the topic of how far removed do we have to be from his career before people start to warm up, and that's one thing that I think we've certainly seen it before. I feel like I think Kelly Bryant is the perfect example of this because Kelly Bryant got a lot of criticism when he was a starter in 2017. And in the immediate aftermath, and of course, in 2018, leaving the team and the whole championship ring controversy. There was a lot of things that that happened that kind of turned. You ask your average Clemson fan about Kelly Bryant, at that time, and many of them would have some negative things to say about him. But then I think now, that you're almost a decade removed, well, man, that's crazy to think about. 8 years. Man.
Don't say that. Don't say that.
But now that you're removed from that, I do think the fans, you ask your average Clemson fan about Kelly Bryant nowadays, and there's a lot more positive reception there. I wonder if that'll be. I wonder if that'll be what happens with Cade. I don't know. Cade was certainly the starter for much longer. I think, and obviously Kelly Bryant went to a college football playoff, but I mean, in a 4-team playoff. So I think there definitely is a little bit of a difference there. But I just wonder if there's going to be that similar effect because, Cade, certainly when you look in the history books, he's going to be, he's going to be a top 5 quarterback statistically.
Yes.
Maybe top 4 after these next couple of weeks. So it's a tough thing to reconcile. I kind of struggle with how I feel about his time here because in many ways he gave a lot of great memories. Cade Klubnik, listen, the lows were pretty low, but he had some really, really high highs too. And I think, that's one thing that, you kind of have to take that, the good with the bad there. And, I just, I think ultimately the real answer is, it's a nuanced question, and it's probably his career was probably a mixed bag, a good bit of a mixed bag, but there was a lot of good that came out of it, and I mean there was also a lot of bad, and I guess the Clemson fans' answer to that question will depend on how much blame they assign to him for the bad, because ultimately, I think there were plenty of things you can get on him for, but the decline over the last few seasons has not been because simply because Cade Klubnik was your quarterback. There's certainly a lot of things within this program that definitely need to change that have contributed to the slide, and this season has been a abject failure for more reasons than Cade Klubnik's play. I think that's ultimately where we stand, and I think you're probably going to need to have a few years before you have a really the fan base kind of comes to a consensus on him. So we'll
I mean, I think ultimately Clemson will lean favorably when it comes to Cade Klubnik, particularly because of just kind of his demeanor, his attitude, his just overall outlook on Clemson. I think they will land favorably, but again, we will see. It's probably gonna be a year or two before that is kind of the consensus around Clemson fans.